Hi everyone, in this video let us understand how to store Terraform state files in Amazon S3. Let us get started. Let us say we are deploying our infrastructure in AWS Cloud, and the team which does this is the platform or the DevOps team. Typically they have the Terraform scripts in a GitHub repo, which is a good practice because multiple people can collaborate and you can source control. You can manage the access to various people within the organization. So the state files for your Terraform projects should be stored in a separate remote storage which is called Amazon S3. There are many options, but we will look at Amazon S3 as one of the options to store the state files. Let's get started. So what exactly a Terraform state in the first place? It is a simple text file which contains lot of information about all the resources which are being managed by the Terraform. So it enables the Terraform to do multiple operations, which we call CRUD, that is create, read, update, delete. Any one of these four operations, if you want to perform on any of the resources, the state file will be leveraged by the Terraform. So the name of the file by default is always terraform.tfstate. The tfstate extension is important here. So it is created in the same directory where we run the Terraform apply. So this file is created only when you run the Terraform apply, and there is a authorization you need to enter yes to auto approve. Then the file will be created. If you look at the file format, it is a simple JSON text file. It contains a mapping of all the resources, the configuration that you have in your Terraform scripts, and also the infrastructure that you deployed. So both of this information is available in this JSON file. So every time you run the Terraform plan or Terraform apply, this state file will be looked into and it will compare the existing configuration with the infrastructure you already provisioned. So it will make any adjustments to the infrastructure in the cloud. So that's very important to manage the security and taking a backup of the Terraform state file all the time. So let us see what we need to take care of, in terms of managing this state file. So first of all, we have to ensure that the state files are very protected. Not everybody can access it, because if you lose the state files, the entire information is not available. It will be difficult to manage the infrastructure in the cloud. So we have to take the backup also regularly. So in case the files are deleted or the team different people are accessing it, so it's important to keep a backup. And if multiple people are accessing the same state file, the same Terraform scripts, we also need to ensure that the teams are given the required access. And all of these state files has to be stored in a shared storage area so that all the teams can access to that folder where the state file is maintained. And most of the times the infrastructure is also deployed using CI/CD pipelines. So in that case, the CI/CD pipeline also needs to get access to this shared area where the Terraform state files are stored. So that means the required permissions has to be enabled for the CI/CD toolchain. And it's not a good idea to store the Terraform state file in the local machine, because the state file is very important and the people can by mistake delete it, or they can make some changes, and it has to be kept very safe in a remote storage area all the time. And it's not a good idea to store the state files in a repository, source control repos like code commit or GitHub, because people might see it, because it's a simple text file and it may contain a lot of sensitive data as well. So secrets, credentials, tokens. So all of this data will be there in the state file. So we should not provide access to everybody, to keep the integrity of this file. So one of the options that we are going to discuss in this video is Amazon S3 bucket as a good option for storing the state files. So before we proceed further, we need to understand what are the requirements for the remote state, shared storage area. So one of the requirement it should have the locking capability, right? So if the teams are accessing the state file for their project, it has to be locked so that the other teams cannot access it. And we need to encrypt at rest so that it's not tampered. At the same time, during the transit also it has to be encrypted, and it should support versioning so that you can go back to the previous golden versions if in case there are some issues with the state file. So the way we can organize the state files is important because if you have multiple projects in an organization, so it's important to keep a separate state file for every project to reduce the blast radius. Because if you have all the resources created using a single state file, and if the state file is corrupted or it is lost due to some reason, then the entire infrastructure is at risk. So instead of creating one big state file, we need to organize the project into sub projects like subfolders, and each folder, each sub project will have its own state file so that it's easy to manage. So the folder structure that you manage in the GitHub or any source control repo should be same as the folder structure that you manage in the S3 also, so that it's easy to map and it's consistent. So in case if you want to go and refer to the state file for a given sub project, it is easier if you keep the consistent folder structure between these two areas. One is the GitHub and another is the S3. We have our infrastructure as code, Git repo. This is where we keep all the Terraform scripts for various workloads. And here we may have different directory structure. For example, you have the top level project in which you have multiple sub projects or sub components. For each of the sub component, we will maintain separate Terraform scripts. This may contain main.tf, output.tf, the backend.tf, and things like that. Backend RTF is important. This is where we configure the backend state storage for the state file. So similarly, you have multiple sub projects and sub components in GitHub. And in Amazon S3, we will have to create one S3 bucket. And in the S3 bucket, we will maintain the same directory structure consistent with the GitHub repo. So for the sub project one, the backend.tf will have the exact path in S3 bucket to store the terraform.tf state file. So that way it is quite easy to locate and manage this mapping. So for every project on the left side, you have the corresponding folder on the right side in the S3 bucket, and it will contain the terraform.tf state file for each of the component. So this is how you can just manage the mapping. Now, this is just one of the options. So every organization and every team may want to manage the state files in a completely different manner. That's absolutely fine. The idea what we need to keep in mind is to manage the Terraform state files in a remote, secure, highly available storage area like Amazon S3. There are multiple other options, but in this case, we are considering S3 as an option, right? So with this understanding, let us proceed with the lab where we will be creating an S3 bucket first and then create some backend.tf configuration file for some of the components, some example components to store the state file in the respective folder in S3. Let's proceed further. This is our instructions guide. We need to create Amazon S3 bucket first where we will be storing the Terraform state files. So you can use either command line tool, AWS CLI, or CloudFormation, or CDK, or any other tool to create this S3 bucket. But here I'm using Terraform itself to create the S3 bucket initially. So this is my folder. So let me go to that folder. This is my folder. Here, let us look at some of the files. Main.tf is quite simple. Then we have S3 variables. This is name of the bucket. S3.tf will contain the actual code to implement the module. So this is the S3 bucket module. It's the name of the bucket and few security configuration in terms of ensuring that there is a encryption during the transit with the TLS. Then encryption at rest using AES 256 encryption. These are some of the important best practices to keep it secure while at rest and also during the transit. It's a quite simple configuration. Then we will have the output, which gives the name of the bucket, and the remaining files are standard files. So the tf vars is where the name of the file is mentioned. So let us do Terraform init. So init is successful. Now let us do Terraform apply. Sorry, I meant Terraform plan. TP stands for Terraform plan. That is done. Now I will do Terraform auto apply. So auto apply completed. This is the name of the S3 bucket. So let me copy this and go to my S3 console. This is the Terraform state file bucket. So this is what we have created just now. Please note the terraform.tf state file is available in this folder because we are creating the S3 bucket, for the first time, and the store we cannot store anywhere else. This has to be in the local machine. This is the state file that we have to take a backup and keep it secure. For all other state files, it will be in S3, right? So this is the initial folder that we have to manage. Now after that, let's go to the GitHub repository where I store my infrastructure as code template file. So this is my repo. Within that I have one folder IaaC/Terraform. So within that I have multiple projects. So one of the projects is, for example, VPC. Then I have some sub projects, which is VPC subnet 3 AZ design. So this particular project, sub project, I wanted to store the state files in S3. So let us proceed to that folder. So this is where my sub component is there. And one of the important configuration is the backend configuration. So the backend is S3. This is the bucket name, which we created a while ago. And the path is important to have a consistency between the GitHub and the S3. So the path is IAC/Terraform so and so, and this is a folder name. The folder name in my GitHub is exactly same as the path name in S3 bucket as well. So that's how we will keep the consistency between these two structures. The remaining Terraform files I'm not going through. It's a simple VPC design. We'll discuss this more in a separate video. But for now, let us just uh, run this command. So let me do ti terraform init. Then terraform plan. Now we'll do terraform apply. So the auto apply is completed. If you see, there is no state file stored in this folder, right? The state file has to be stored in S3 based on this path. So let's go to the S3 folder. This is my top level bucket. Within that I have this folder IAC, then terraform, go to VPC and subnet 3 AZ design. So this is where my state file is stored, right? So this is just one of the option to create a consistency between the Terraform state file directory structures in S3 and the GitHub folder. Every organization or every DevOps team might follow a different way of organizing the state files in S3 or any other shared storage area. So the idea we need to keep in mind is always keep state files in a remote, secure, highly available shared storage area that allows people to collaborate and have various other features that we discussed earlier. Okay, so with this we conclude the lab for Terraform state files in Amazon S3.